Doctor, give me the news. I got a bad case of threatening yous. Militant anti-abortionists, usually rational to a fault, were ordered to pay $107 million in damages after a federal jury found their website's abortion doctor wanted posters and baby butcher name and address lists amounted to illegal threats. Defendant Charles Wysong of Tennessee's American Rights Coalition called the decision a miscarriage of justice.
There's nothing in those posters that's threatening, and they know it.
Wysong then added, threatening? I mean, come on, it's not like we hire snipers with wilderness skills, much. The pro-life defendants claimed nowhere on their website are there any words which incite violence, claiming the sentence, ilke abortione octors de aune, was just a fun Dr. Seuss rhyme for kids. While pleased with the verdict, pro-choice doctors expressed mixed feelings.
There is no way to remove or turn back what has occurred.
Although she appeared distressed when asked what she's going to do now that she's won $107 million, Dr. Newhall reportedly jumped in the air and yelled, I'm going to perform an abortion at Disney World. Settle down. Joining me right now are two senior political correspondents on The Daily Show staff, Mo Rocca and Nancy Walls. What really struck me about the debates last night was the abortion issue. It came to the forefront and I thought really divided the two candidates. Mo, what were your impressions about their abortion issue?
Well, John, I can say with certainty that for countless American women, the deciding factor in how their vote is cast depends on whether or not the candidate is pro-choice.
Yes, John, I'd like to...
Mo, that's an interesting point. You know, you feel like abortion is the swing issue this year.
Absolutely.
Well, Nancy, you know what? I'm sorry, Nancy. I've got word that Vance DeGeneres in Tampa would like to weigh in. Vance?
You know, the next administration is going to appoint 3, maybe 4 Supreme Court justices. Now, all the experts agree that Roe v. Wade will be a litmus test.
Well, that's a valid point, Vance, I'd have to say.
Right. You know, the real issue here, John,
hold that thought, honey. We've actually got Steve Carell on the phone, I believe. He's off today, but he's calling in from his home in New Jersey. Steve, did you have something you wanted to contribute to the abortion discussion?
Yes, John, if abortions are outlawed, only outlaws will have abortion. And I ain't gonna play Sun City.
That's an excellent point, Steve. I've got to say that's
John,
exactly...
I really feel like I have to comment here.
Whoa there. I'll handle this one.
Yes, I'm sorry, Stephen Colbert.
Well, John, I think there's one thing that no one is naming. Last night, on that stage, 2 men stood behind podiums, 2 men, and talked about whether women should have reproductive rights. Now, why haven't we, heard from any of the chicks?
Well, that's a valid point. We've got time for one more comment. Nancy, what about that? Why are women dropping the ball on this?
You know, John, I've been sitting here listening to all of you and the issue of whether women should have...
You know what? Oh, is that over there? Our cameraman Tom's been waiting very patiently. Tom, you had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I just think that women should definitely have the right to decide what happens to their own bodies. Also, I think prostitution should be legalized.
All right, well, that's an excellent discussion. I want to thank everybody, Mo, Vance, Steve Carell at home, Tom, the cameraman, terrific work.
The issue is so much more than about abortion. It's about the fundamental issue of whether or not every human life has intrinsic worth and value. I believe that every life has value.
Right.
And then the question comes, is it a life? At what point is it a life? And at what point is it our responsibility to give it the same protection that hopefully would be given to you or to me?
Right.
And,
do you believe, here's what I'm always curious about.
Yeah.
In terms of the right, and I'm sure there's complaints on the pro-life side as well. Do you think that on the side of choice, that they don't believe that every human life has value? Because I'm always curious. I tend to think that the discussion is painted in that direction as pro-abortion and this idea that there's a callous indifference to life, which doesn't seem to be
anybody that wakes up and says, I really think abortion is a wonderful, wonderful thing. I don't truly believe that even people who would consider themselves pro-choice like abortion. Right. I think that they haven't thought through the implications and the logical conclusion. For example, if we train a generation coming up after us that it is okay to take a human life because that life represents to us an interference or an interruption to our lives, either economically or socially or whatever the reason. And by the way, 93% of abortions are elective abortions. then what happens when our children one day look at us and we're old? And we're going to get there, John. We are.
What?
Someday.
Not if we keep talking about this.
I do not want to give, but I do not want to give my kids the opportunity to say, Dad, you are an interference. Coming to see you in the nursing home is really messing up my social life.
Right.
You are very expensive, Dad. Your long-term care bill is breaking us.
But you're not at that point living inside your kids. In other words, and I don't mean that for, and I think there's and I don't mean to make light of it, because I think my personal feelings about it, look, I have kids, and I think it's very difficult when you look at an ultrasound of your child and you see a heartbeat, you are filled with that wonder and love and all those things. I just don't feel personally that that's a decision I can make for another person.
I think one of the fundamental questions that we would have to come to is, does a person have a right to own another person?
Whoa.
That really is the issue. Can a person own another person? Can the mother totally own the child? Can the father own the child? Can the government
totally own the mother?
No, I don't think the government can completely own anybody.
But isn't that the same
but
argument?
Our founding fathers, John, said that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all people are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Right. The concept was that there is an equality about each human life, that no one is worth more than another, no one is worth less than another.
Isn't it the decision that's been made, or at least tried to be made, is that the progression of that life, there becomes a point where the state has an interest in protecting that life. But at a certain point on its cellular level, there is time built in for those types of decisions. Even if there was a
concession for that, there's a heartbeat at 21 days. Many abortions happen well after the heartbeat. Late-term abortions, where many people are saying, look, no one should be able to intervene.
What about embryonic research? Are you against IVF? Is that?
The interesting thing is that now more of the really credible research is happening toward adult stem cells. There was such a
IVF is not. That's not stem cell. That's in vitro fertilization, which is
you're talking about
people that are having difficulty having children go in and.
You're talking about like frozen embryos.
Well, they're not frozen.
In vitro.
Sometimes when a man loves a woman.
Yes. Is that what happens?
And
I've always wondered how it was.
But they've smoked a lot of pot and can no longer produce sperm.
Yeah.
They go to a doctor. And what happens is it's conception outside of the body.
I thought you were talking about the frozen embryos. I carry in my wallet a photo of a little girl.
I thought you were going to say a frozen embryo. No. Be like, what? You carry what?
No, that's in my other pocket.
Right. I'm sorry.
Just in case. You never know when that might come in.
No, I understand.
But it's a 4-year-old girl. I met her and her mother in Seattle, Washington. And she was, the reason I guess it's triggered, she was a frozen embryo.
Right.
Implanted into her mother. A beautiful, beautiful child. And the mother approached me and said, if anyone ever says to you that, these embryos are just sort of tissue or they're just cells, said, look at the picture of my child and tell me my child isn't real. It was a powerful moment for me to see and to actually physically hold this child and to realize.
And here's where it's so complex. That child would not be born without embryonic research. Let's begin tonight with a battle between religious leaders and the Obama administration over contraception and our ongoing coverage of the Punani state. Now, for those of you who haven't been following the story, let me bring you up to speed. Years ago, Adam and Eve lived in a garden. Now, all right, let's just scroll up and then, okay. Martin Luther nailed 95 theses. Let's just scroll up a little bit. Okay, here we go. 2 weeks ago, the Obama administration found itself at the center of a controversy over its decisions to make religious-affiliated institutions or their insurers cover contraception as part of their government-mandated health care. The move was seen by some religious leaders as Obama's biggest misstep since the time he set aside a chair for Elijah Wood at the Passover Seder. Elijah Wood. Oh, there are a couple of Orthodox Jews that really got that. And everyone else does not understand. So we have ourselves an old-fashioned liberty standoff. On the one hand, the Catholic Church. They do not want to be forced to pay money for insurance plans that cover contraception for even their non-Catholic employees, although they do pay those employees money.
So I guess the argument could be made that by paying these employees, church money ends up being used for contraception anyway, and pornography, and dildos rolled in glitter, and entrance fees to clubs where cats have sex with dogs. 8th Street and 3rd Avenue. It's called... On the other side, they've been there. They know. Meow, meow, meow. A lot of other names for that. On the other side are women who, for some reason, would like their preventative health care costs provided by their health care insurance provider. Tough case, because the sides are the Catholics and women, and both are infallible. Am I right? So last Thursday, Congressman Darrell Issa convened a panel to settle the issue, and while no ladies were actually allowed to speak until the afternoon session, and no ladies actually ever spoke on behalf of ladies, some of these fellas were wearing gowns, so that's something. Let's hear the reasoned tone that the Sausage Fest struck in this effort to find balance between religious liberty and the realities of the secular world.
I don't normally quote from Joseph Stalin.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there. We're just going to move on to the next guy, if that's all right. Anyone have a slightly less hyperbolic take on this?
The violation of a person's religious conscience was nothing less than the rape of the soul.
That's a quote from Roger Williams, and I believe the worst Law and Order spinoff yet. Ice-T, Belzer, and Marky Post, where's the chemistry? Listen, no one loves their insurance plan, but soul rape? Well, you may not realize this, but the Catholic Church actually offers health plans that already cover Viagra, a.k.a. boner pill, a.k.a. Das Stiffmacher, a.k.a. 4-hour Johnson juice. I'm guessing that doesn't rape the soul, that some of your employees, I guess, are getting that subsidized Viagra, and I guess some of them are single, unmarried men. What do you think they're doing with their erections? Seriously, we'd love to know. Send your responses to Brian Williams, care of NBC Nightly News. Re, that question you had about men's erections. So how is it that, I can't wait to find out, how is it that women can't get their pill, but men can get their pill? Well, as it happens, the church answered that very question 12 years ago.
Viagra actually answers a medical problem. Contraception is a choice that somebody may make, but it doesn't answer a particular health care need.
Two things. Why? One, does 12 years ago look like the 70s on television? Has it really advanced that far in 12 years? And two, so the Catholic Church says a boner is a need, but not getting pregnant is more of a want. By the way, while I was surprised that the Catholic Church is pro-medically induced boners, I was even more shocked at the ad it ran to show its support. Now, you never know when the Spirit will move you. Anyway, I digress. Yeah. I don't know why they both get to wear nice hats, but anyway. Back to the hearing. We've already heard from the Stalin and rape people. Could someone please put this in terms that are a little more relatable?
For my testimony today, I would like to tell a story. Let's call it the parable of the kosher deli.
Go on!
Once upon a time, a new law was proposed so that any business that serves food must serve pork. Can a customer come to a kosher deli, demand to be served a ham sandwich, and if refused, bring down severe government sanction on the deli? In a nation committed to religious liberty and diversity, the answer is no.
Do you got my pickle? Sir, your parable about the kosher deli, while delicious, makes no sense. Nobody's forcing the kosher deli owner to serve a ham. In the metaphor, it's more like the owner of the kosher deli is refusing to pay taxes because his money could go to food stamps, which someone might theoretically use to buy ham. Although, to be fair to Darrell Issa, at the hearings, a woman was put forth to speak on behalf of someone who needed contraception to help with a medical condition, and that speaker was denied a spot because, Stalin rape. Anyway.